What up, everybody? It's Kylie from Ground Zero Radio, and today I'm going to be interviewing Nico and Corbin, the creators of Freakscene, and we're going to be talking about the importance of the underground and DIY community. Okay, welcome Nico and Corbin. Thanks for talking to us today. So for my first question, I just wanted to ask, what is Freakscene, and can you explain what the website is and what it does?
I'll start. I'll let Nico go on that as well. So Freakscene, in short, is a platform for the DIY community, mostly rooted around like music and performing arts, but we want to be inclusive of anybody who identifies with doing stuff themselves outside of like the constraints of capital and all that. And at core is a place for community online and for sharing events. And then it's grown and will continue to grow into many other things that Nico and his dev team are working hard on.
Hell yeah. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
The definition is the DIY online community for underground artists. We're just trying to make a place for people to come having to sell their soul to corporate social media. Sorry.
No, yeah.
Heavy-handed. But yeah.
So you both have background like in the DIY scene, and can you speak a little bit on your background and experience just in like organizing house shows and being an artist?
We've both hosted, had show houses at the same time, about 2 blocks from each other, through a bit of a heyday in the Portland music scene, some years ago now. I had a house called Crush House that we hosted shows pretty regularly at, and that was something, I've been going to house shows since I was a teenager, and when I finally had that space to be able to host it, it was, an honor to be able to bring people together in that space, and love hosting bands and getting different kinds of people to see different kinds of music together, and I always really enjoyed, having that. I no longer live in a massive house that you can have hundreds of people come in and visit. So hosting is a little bit different these days, which is also part of what is nice about Freakscene. And like I mentioned, Nico's place was like 2 blocks away from our house, so we would have shows happening at the same time frequently.
I've been in the DIY scene like my entire life. Like moved out to Portland in 2014, and that's when I met Corbin. And shortly after we started Space, Human Flesh Body World, I was inspired by all the show houses I'd been to in Chicago and in the Bay Area, just different places that I've lived, and just seeing people like put all these things together, just and how much like love and like creativity goes into like making the shows. And then COVID just screwed everything up. I realized there was it was my new creative outlet, booking shows and making crazy like paper mache statues to put in our backyard and like giant bonfires, or like bands that perform while like jumping on a trampoline. So something like Freakscene's kind of like has like a purpose in like giving me that creative outlet back. I'm like booking shows again. I'm like working directly with artists, and like I have something to offer the DIY community again. And it's like super special to have that outlet accessible again.
And how long did y'all have the houses that you lived in that you were doing it as like venues?
I was at Crush House I moved in there in like 2014, and then we hosted until, I'm actually pulling up my website to get it, 2014 to 2020.
Oh wow.
Is when we were active.
Human Flesh was 2013 to 2018 was Human Flesh, and we had a spot called Somewhere Else for 2 years, 2018 to 2020. Last show, March 7th, 2020. I insisted on having that show, and now I feel like, okay, we got our last squeak in before the apocalypse. It felt like a heyday of shows in Portland. Everything's bouncing back now, so it's really cool to see.
So what do you think was the importance of creating Freakscene to highlight the specific area of DIY shows and underground shows?
Because nothing else was really serving our community anymore. I mean, it's almost embarrassing to acknowledge this, but I know Nico and I can both say the same thing, that like Facebook and Facebook events for a long time was integral to the DIY scene. I mean, it was how we could be, it could be a Wednesday, you could throw an event on Facebook, and 2 days later you'd have 200 people show up at your house, and it would be this huge thing. And then I think, there's a kind of a gradual slide that sank totally with when the pandemic came around, that everyone kind of shifted to Instagram, which has never had an events platform. So it's been not a good place to do that. And not only not a good place to do it, I think that the algorithms on these platforms generally do not want you to leave the platform and go interact in real life anymore. So it's all kind of pushed in this opposite direction. And, I think that we were definitely feeling I'm not going to say it all this is unique to us, because we've heard the same thing from so many other people, that like this energy, this desire to organize and come together that is just latent. It's there no matter what. If you're somebody who's in these spaces, like, was no longer being served by any of the platforms that are out there. And so it was just sort of like there is a need that's not being met, that we have some actual utility for. And I can speak for a lot of people beyond just the two of us, of the experience of going on Instagram, seeing a really awesome event and realizing it was 2 days ago. And then like you missed it, and you didn't see the flyer earlier, so you didn't have any way of knowing about it, and that's a bummer. And it also is damaging to the communities if people aren't able to engage with each other. And so we wanted to try to do whatever we could to help that whole thing operate a little smoother.
Yeah, it's like the internet has always been a place for people to share art, right? That's like not something that we like invented by any means, right? But it just so happens that like these algorithms and social media as a tool has become like an appendage of capitalism, right? And so it places this corporate constraint on these like creative broadcasting tools that artists are using, right? So the same place that you're like putting out your your new albums, or your comedy, or like your short film, is the same place where people are getting goods, products, services advertised to them, right? And as long as that is a thing, like, the status quo of social media 2025, like, those tools are not tools for artists anymore, right? And I see it in like the younger generations of artists who get like immediately disillusioned with their art when it's not getting the engagement that they expect it to be getting on whatever platform that they posted it to. People that are basically like becoming like creatively dysmorphic because of these applications giving them the wrong idea. And it's just like that. It's so saddening to me, because the internet was not always like this. Even Instagram and Facebook weren't always like this, and so just having, we may not be the solution to all those problems with something like Freakscene, but we are an alternative place to go that is like definitely not advertising anything at you right now, and giving people a place to like discover new artists and network for their next tour, or find venues in a location that they're visiting over the summer.
And that's also so true. Like, anytime I go on Instagram, I would say half the stuff is like ads, and then when there is something that I was like, oh, like da-da-da's doing a show, and it's like 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and you only know about it if you like miss their story. Or so yeah, that's a great point. And so as a whole, what are your hopes and your plans for Freakscene?
I think our initial growth was like such a shock to us, because when we launched in January, we were kind of thinking we'd maybe hit 500 members, 1,000 members by this time of the year, and we're at like 13,000 now. And so a lot of the scope has changed quite a bit, in sort of what we're doing. But I think like our core goal is like really stay the same, and like providing this space for people. And I think the larger, maybe loftier goal out of that is being able to provide something to bring people together from different geographic, scenes, like making it easy for touring artists to find each other, to find venues, making it so that like, hey, maybe you're like at home in Bellingham and you've never gotten to meet anybody in the Berlin scene, but you can go find those people on Freakscene and connect and like collaborate and break out of your one little friend group that only plays hardcore music, and find people in different scenes who are doing different stuff and learn from them and share with each other. And I think that we are let's like DIY community, are a disparate community that are not really bound together with any one thing. Who are doing things and are creating, have this energy and desire that I think anything we can do to tap into is beneficial, and especially in the light of like the state of our world and culture more broadly, which is not generally particularly interested in supporting these types of artists and individuals.
I mean, there's a lot of like, it's like a collective unconscious moment right now where I see a lot of other people in other scenes doing very similar things to Freakscene. Taking it back to just like the idea of DIY for me is like what you want to do, and you do it yourself and you make it. You throw shows in that it's like next to Home Depot. Like, you help bands book tours in places that people and network. You run art collective pop-up shop. You just like trench yourself as like part of the like community, each other up, and it takes all of the freaks on Freakscene to keep this thing going. Like, it's a platform for and by the DIY community. And I think hopes and goals is we want to become that place that supports, the DIY artists who are touring, the DIY artists who want to collaborate with other people, like legitimately like grassroots projects at every level, like online and in person. People who are doing sites similar to Freakscene, Cal Red, NYC Noise, like all these different like events, DIY calendars, art calendars. Like, we want to build a coalition of DIY internet communities, places for people to go. So when you have that moment of feeling disillusioned or frustrated with Instagram or Spotify or TikTok, or Bandcamp getting sold to Fortnite or whatever, you can be like, oh wait, I'm gonna check out Freakscene. Like, and then when you get there, chances are you already know a lot of people who are here already, and we just want to make it easier to do DIY on that global level.
Nice. Hell yeah. It was funny because one time I was at one of my jobs and I work at a venue, and one of my coworkers actually was like, oh, you know that website Freakscene? And I was like, I do. I was like, hey, how do you know about this? I was like, that's so cool. Thanks for sitting down with me and talking today, guys. Before we leave, do you have any like places that you want to promote, or like where can we find you guys at in Freakscene.us and whatever else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, you can find us on there. We're always very accessible. Nico and I are people, and we're always happy to talk and connect. And if anyone ever is curious what we're doing, we're available. And this is never going to be a situation where we're some tech exec that's dissociated from what's going on. Like, we're always going to be in the weeds on everything that we're doing here. And like Nico said earlier, it's 100% like thanks to everybody on the website that's actually using it and making it happen. That makes it work. So I mean, I want to put my thanks out there to everybody who's logged in and who's come back and who's posted events and posted in the forums and engaged and told their friends about it. Yeah,
get on Freakscene.diy. we're there. That's where the site lives. It's also at freakscene.us, and we pronounce it us, not US. No, it's okay. That was
That's why we have to change the URL, though.
That's why we changed the URL. But it exists in both those places, not to be confusing. Check it out at Freakscene.diy. We also have our Instagram at Freakscene.diy. If you have music videos, if you have any content you want to put on Freak TV, that's like a great place to start. You can make a band page on Freak Scene, make your profile, get LinkedIn. We have I think over 50 different scenes. I said LinkedIn, but I meant, get linked in.
We're on LinkedIn as well, just in case, anybody's back on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, we're on LinkedIn too. But yeah, whatever. Please don't follow us on LinkedIn. Actually, can I tell your users not to go to this? The listeners listening to this, Freakscene.diy. Go to the website, won't you?
Slay. Well, thanks, guys.